Go, Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe, foe, foe. Scoring touchdowns for the blue on blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the top. Pull together till the Grey Cups won. Go Argos, go, go, go. Together fight the foe, foe, foe. Scoring touchdowns for the blue on blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the top. Pull together till the Grey Cups won. Go Argos, go Toronto, go. Go Argos, go, go, go.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 18 of the Argo Bounce Live audio show here on this Friday, November 8th, 2024. It's been a while, and it's a weekly podcast radio show devoted to the CFL's 18-time Grey Cup champions with co-host Nick Small and Chris Pomay. I hope everyone's doing well on this Friday, November 8th, 2024, on the eve of the Argos Alouettes third straight Eastern final, but this time it is in McGill Stadium in Montreal for the first time since 2012. And the Argonauts and Alouettes this year played 3 times. The Argos won 2 out of the 3 meetings. Montreal won the first meeting 30-20 in Toronto, and then the Argos first game in Montreal and only game in Montreal, 37-18 win with Cameron Dukes as quarterback. And then the Argos won the last matchup 37-31 in September as well. So this year, the Argos are the underdogs and the Alouettes are the heavy favorites, being the defending unbeatable Grey Cup champions who have been on cruise control the last 6 weeks. And it'll be ironic to see if the Argos can flip the script this year on the road as the underdogs. And Nick, thoughts on the Argos 58-38 win over Ottawa, the most playoff points ever in a playoff game, and I believe second most after their 70-point performance against Calgary in 1990 at the Skydome.
Well, they certainly don't look as unbeatable, the Alouettes, as the Toronto Argonauts did last year, where they were 16-2. Montreal only came into the playoffs being 12-5-1, and that tie to Calgary was pretty ugly for a team they should have wiped the floor with. But yeah, let's reflect back on last week. It was an absolute barn blazer. After the first quarter, when the Argonauts were in a little bit of a hole, I did have a little bit of nervousness, and I think a lot of us Argos fans did, but there was that optimism that they'll turn around. They hadn't really had the ball a lot at that point in the game. The one possession was a 2-and-out, and Drew Brown was moving down the field, but fortunately the Argonauts were able to take advantage of the fact that Ottawa did not show any sign of running the football at all. They were clearly all pass every play from the get-go, and fortunately the defense was able to stand up where it mattered, and the offense, Chad Kelly was able to absolutely pick apart perfect busts in coverage. He found so many guys wide open deep downfield. Mackay Polk, of course, for several catches. Davaris Daniels. The stat I found that was really interesting that Ben Grant had shared was that in the number of routes run by Mackay Polk, not times he was targeted or times the ball was thrown to him, in just the amount of times Mackay Polk ran a route, he gained 6 yards. Over his total yardage across the game, which is an absolutely insane statistic that even if the ball's not thrown to you, you're gaining 6 yards on offense. It was just the numbers offensively for both sides of this game were just absolutely insane, and it made it for such a wild, entertaining game to watch. The crowd was so into it. The energy was there. You can hear Mike Hogan on the radio just absolutely share that energy and passion with everybody else who was there at the game. It was phenomenal.
Yes, as for the Argos, they got off to a slow start in this game, 10-0, but they didn't panic. And they didn't really establish the running game a lot in this game. They did have 79 yards rushing. They were a little more effective in the second half, but it would have been nice to see Carey get the ball a little bit more as well. But overall, Ottawa had a good start, but their offense couldn't do anything with the ball, Nick. The first half, they were up 23-20, but they dominated the time of possession, Nick. They had the ball 24 minutes. Toronto had 5. Usually in football, Nick, the team that has the ball for 24 minutes wins the game usually. That was a huge key for the Argonauts, only being down by 3 at halftime. That squib kick was a disaster for Ottawa. And like I said, Ottawa had their chances in the first half, and their red zone offense was awful. And that's the difference in this game. The Argos got the ball. They ended up getting touchdowns. They had 7 touchdowns. Ottawa did score their touchdowns, but if they had scored more in the first half, this could have been a different game. So you got to credit the Argos defense. I've heard criticism. They gave up too many big plays, too many points, but they bent, but they didn't break in that first half. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think if you take it in a vacuum, they scored 23 points in the first half. I think it would be pretty hard-pressed to say in a vacuum, blinders on, hey, would you take 23 points in the first half against the Toronto Argonauts? The Ottawa Red Blacks would take that all day long. And not knowing the context of how exactly the game went about, you look at the squib kick in particular as one instance where I don't think it was necessarily the result they intended, but if you're going to kick it, it's absolutely critical that you do not hit the first line of guys for that possibility that gets knocked down, because that's the consequence you paid for, and it gave the Argonauts some momentum back. I don't blame Drew Brown at all in the passing play for this loss. I mean, he was 46 of 61 passes, 487 yards.
3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, which came late in the fourth quarter. I think where a lot of the issues came with was the secondary, because as you saw, Chad Kelly was able to find guys deep downfield with nobody around them. I think there were at least 4 instances between Mackay Polk and Tavares Daniels where there was nobody around them. You can't give up 30-yard plus plays consecutively like that and expect to have any chance to win. And I think we see that being reflected in that the defensive coordinator for the Ottawa Red Blacks was let go today. They mutually agreed to part
Darren
ways.
Miles.
Yeah,
Darren Miles.
So,
the rumor is now former Tiger Cats defensive coordinator Mark or is it Mark or Mike Hamilton? Mark Washington. Mark Washington might be replacing him. But you know what? Ottawa still, they got off to a good start this year, and the second half they weren't as good, but they weren't playing with Adarius Pickett either. He's their heart and soul of their defense. He's basically their Wynton McManus, and that was a huge loss as well. But you know what? Ottawa overall, they weren't even supposed to make the playoffs this year. Montreal, yes. Toronto, yes. Hamilton was supposed to be, and they didn't. And Ottawa obviously did enough right in the first half, and Hamilton got off to that horrible start. So I see a bright future for Ottawa, and they have their franchise quarterback in Drew Brown. He did everything he could to win that game for them, and unfortunately, Toronto has a little more talent and a little more depth as well. And hey, and that's another thing, Nick, I wanted to talk to you. Even without Tommy Neal and DeMonte Coxey, guys stepped up. Polk stepped up. Devarius Daniels stepped up with a couple more touchdowns. And I even asked Chad Kelly, I said, look, you've played on some great teams, but I said, the depth and the talent on this team, I said, look, you guys lost Curly Gertens Jr. to a trade. And I said, you guys just have gone the chemistry, and that's a big thing. Chad told me is the chemistry. The guys, they all like playing for Chad, and he has good chemistry with them. And it doesn't matter who it is; it's the next man up. And I'm not sure about Coxie's status for Saturday against Montreal, though.
Yeah, well, the chemistry has been something that's been talked about a lot this season. You look at the way that Mike Pinball Clemens has come up with this roster, and while it may not necessarily have the same kind of elite level as the team the season before did, there's still a lot of really strong pieces there, and they've made so many good moves in the front office to pick up the right pieces that they needed to fill in the right spots. Like look at Jake Hirschlow, who came in
He
twice
was
in as
good. He
many
was good.
games as he's came in, he scored a touchdown. So
Yeah.
and coming in for Coxie in a really high pressure situation on very short notice. You look at guys like Milton, like Benji Franklin, Isaac D'Arcangelo, Fraser Sopik on defense. You look at the offensive line that has largely remained intact. Like if you're going to give the criticisms on the guys who have been let go, guys like Boris Beatty, guys like AJ Oled, look at the O line and who they've kept and how fantastic they've been at protecting Chad Kelly for the majority of this season. And then the receiving core as well, like we talked about. Makai Polk stepping up and how everybody was up in arms when Rashid Bailey got left go.
Yeah,
And
I
now
was. I was.
Makai Polk has made a case now that if he had have played the whole season, he could have probably been a receiver MOP candidate.
Absolutely. And there was something else I was going to say too, but this team, they didn't have the same record as last year. I did predict. I was the only guy that said 10-8, and everyone's like 13, 14 wins. But you know what? For this team to go 10-8 without their starting quarterback for 9 games, that's pretty impressive. And you know what? Whether you like him or not, Chad Kelly is the engine that makes this offense go. And it's no disrespect. We've talked about this, Nick, before about Arbuckle and Dukes. They don't have the deep ball threats that Kelly does. And the only negative in that game was Kelly did get sacked. He got hit hard and he fumbled the ball. But you know what? I don't care who you are as a quarterback. You get hit like Kelly did, you're going to fumble the ball. So
I
don't
don't blame the sack on him. You look at if you rewatch the play, nobody even touched the defensive back, the tackle who came through. There was no way that Chad barely had the chance to look up, let alone let the ball go out of his hand before he
took some hard he took some hard hits in this game, and like you said, what he's like off the field, that's another thing, but on the field he shows his toughness. And I had no issues with any of his passes. Like there wasn't where, oh my God, Chad, what are you doing? What are you doing? Other than that sack, and Ottawa came at him hard. So Ottawa
what I really liked was how when he got injured there or pulled by the concussion spotter, the fact that the running game was then able to rebound in a situation where Nick Arbuckle comes in.
Yes.
Everyone in the entire stadium knows you are running the football because there's no way you're going to chance a substitute quarterback coming in on 2 throws of warming up to throw a ball deep downfield. You know they were running. And the fact that Kadeem Carey was able to plow the ball again and again and again until Chad Kelly was eligible to come back in.
We have a viewer on here, Facebook user. I'm not sure who it is. Chris, wish you and Nick were on the train to Montreal to watch the game. Go Argos. If
I have to place my bets, it might have been our buddy Richard Chung, who I chatted with a little bit before the game. He told me to say hi to you, and he promised you a cheer extra loud at the game. There are a number of Argos fans who boarded the Via trains today after their work shifts were done to make their way over to Molson Percival Stadium to cheer for the good guys as they head on into a very hostile environment packed with loud, noisy blowhorns in order to punch their ticket from one side of the country all the way to the other to BC for the Grey Cup.
Do you know this is our 18th show of the season, and this is the first show I have not worn an Argos hat. I completely forgot to put my Argos hat on, but I have the world champion Buffalo Bandits hat on and shirt, and I did cover the National Lacrosse League Championship Series last year, so I've been very lucky, and now the Bandits are my new replacement for the Argos for the next 6 months.
Well, at least it's not a Hamilton Tiger Cats hat.
Speaking of that, we will talk a little bit about the Cats later on. Hey, Nick, before we have our guests come on, surprise guests come on later, I did an interview with a super fan who's similar to you, Nick. His name is Austin Stevenson, and I want to just play a 3-minute interview with Austin. He's the same age as you, and he breathes and dies with the Argonauts, and he's got a little story about Pinball Clements too.
Sure, let's go for it.
It's only 3 minutes, and it's courtesy of my YouTube channel. So everybody watching this, please hit the subscribe and like notification. My interview with Argonaut super fan Austin Stevenson. Chris Pomay here, a radio host of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show on WQE 99.1 FM. I'm here at BMO Field for today's East semifinal between the Toronto Argonauts and the visiting Ottawa Red Blacks, and I have a special guest here. I got an Argo super fan with me, and his name is Austin, and we're going to get Austin's thought on this matchup today with Ottawa for the second time in 3 days. Hey, Austin, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. I see you're a big Argo fan. How long have you been an Argonaut fan for?
I've been an Argonauts fan since I was born. I went to Grey Cup in 2008 when I was 2 years old, and just have been a fan ever since then. It was nice.
How much does this team mean to you?
Everything. It's lifeblood. It's what I was raised on. It's been what I've known since I was a little kid.
And you got your Argo jersey. What player is that on the back of it? 48.
This is my own custom jersey. It has Stevenson on the back, because my number in sports is 48, but it's McManus as well. He's one of my favorite players too.
I was going to ask you, besides Went McManus, who are some of your other favorite Argonaut players on this team?
On the team right now, Arbuckle was one of my favorite quarterbacks. He was good during that little stint. And then there's a few players that I've liked that have recently left, so it kind of sucks. But I don't know. I'd say more McManus and Arbuckle were my favorites.
How do you see this game going today? Obviously, you're an Argos fan, so you want Toronto to win. But playing Ottawa twice in 3 weeks, and the last game, the score was closer than the game was. Any concerns about a letdown against Ottawa today?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really close game. It's going to be a very interesting one. I think it's going to come right down to the wire and maybe golden goal territory at the end of it.
What are some keys for an Argonaut win today against Ottawa here?
I need to hold our defense, stay out of the passing game as much, trying to knock everything down, and then capitalize when we have the ball and just get in that end zone.
And what do you see the score as? If you don't mind me putting you on the spot here.
I see it 32-28 Argonauts. That's where I'm staying.
And thoughts on the stadium here, BMO Field, and the crowd today? I guess they're expecting at least 20,000 here today.
Yeah, no, that's the first time I heard about it. That's a lot. It's amazing to see how much this has grown, because I remember back however many years ago there was like 5,000 people max, but it's amazing to see it grow and more people coming out.
Yes, the Argonauts attendance is coming up, and winning does help. And this team has made the playoffs the last 4 years under Brian Dinwiddie. And quick thoughts on Michael Pinball Clements.
I love Pinball. I have several photos with him. He held me as a baby. He's one of the best things that could have ever happened to the Argonauts.
And your paint job, do you do that yourself?
Yes, sir, I did. It was not last second, but I thought about it the night before, grabbed the face paint, and then did it right away.
And finally, where can my audience follow you on social media if you're on there?
I have an Instagram, AussieBoy48, OZZYBOI48, and then that's really all. Yeah.
And final thoughts.
Go Argos.
Go Argos. And Austin, I want to say thank you so much and enjoy this East semifinal game between Toronto and Ottawa. 3 o'clock kickoff at BMO Field. Thanks so much, Austin. Go Argos.
Thank you, sir.
Thoughts on the interview, Nick, with Austin?
Yeah, I have never gone to the extreme length of painting my face in double blue paint yet, but
Not yet.
yeah, no, not yet. The Winnie McManus reference there on his jersey is awesome, and it's nice that we've got some more young fans like Austin who have shown their passion and have paid it forward to be coming out to every game. And while I don't think the numbers of the attendance has been as low as 5,000, except for maybe um, that one game, I think in 2021. Coming out of COVID, I know the numbers were fairly low, but it is a reflection on the atmosphere here at BMO Field that through the team success, winning games, and the marketing and everything that side of the game has gone for the Argonauts, that they are attracting larger and larger crowds. And especially over the last couple of weeks, we've seen crowds above 15,000, and within that crowd of close to 20,000 for the most part being there at games. The atmosphere at BMO Field has become even more exciting and electric. It becomes an even more difficult place to play there because the noise carries so loudly at BMO Field. It's made for such an engaging and exciting fan experience, and the value is still all there with it being nowhere near the price of some of Toronto's other premier sports markets.
The East Final this year, or sorry, the playoff game against Ottawa drew 3,000 less than the East Final against Montreal. Nick, I know 18,000 is an improvement, but for a playoff game on a fall Saturday on a perfect day, the Leafs were in St. Louis, the Blue Jays were gone, the FC are gone. I really thought they could have drawn 25,000 for the game. The attendance is getting better, but it's still not up to where it should be. And I'm really hoping Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment going forward, well, let's try to get that attendance up to 20 to 25. We've harped about it before. Should be at least 25,000 a game, but the people that do come are loud and noisy, and the 18,000 fans are much noisier there than the 35-40 at the Rogers Center or at the Scotiabank Arena.
Well, that's it. Do you want, and that's the challenge of approaching it. Do you want to give tickets away where you have people whose hearts aren't really in with it, or do you want your playoff games to be rewarded and being filled with 18,000 of your most passionate and diehard fans? And I'm okay with the approach that they've taken up to this point because, as we've seen, it's proven in results and attendance that the numbers keep going up, and that's what they need right now. They need a growth in loyal, sustained fans rather than just fans who are going to come off a coupon on the back of a Coke can or something.
I like the halftime show, the YouTube tribute band, but I still think they should have been on the field because, to
Well,
me,
that's never going to happen while the BMO Field's still grass. It's not going to happen.
well, to me, I would have had him on the field, even in one of the end zones. But overall, it was good. It was, at least they brought in a band for halftime. My opinion, they should have had him in the end zone, but
I
that's
like
for
how
another
more
day.
engaging it is for fans. I was right there up, and I was
Okay,
actually when
okay,
they were performing, I was right in front on stage. Mind you, I was
okay.
actually trying to get into the lower concourse underneath them, and I had to go around because part of the one stairwell was blocked off. But I thought it was nice that the fans were able to be a bit more directly engaged with the concert going on, rather than it being on the stage and you're being kind of removed from it.
Okay, you make a point there.
It's kind of like how when we've seen certain concerts like Tim Hortons Field has done it for the Ticats, where they've had a lot more closer fan interactions because it's either in the Stipley area, which is on the west end zone, if I'm not mistaken, or there's that kind of band shell stage that they have at a lot of games that's on the east concourse in the north corner, where you're still kind of in an area where you can interact more directly.
Okay, point taken, but at least they had a halftime show there, and the band was pretty good. I have to say. So yeah, yeah. Hey Nick, before we get our guests in, we'll talk a little bit more. I'm going to ask you another question, and then I want to play the post game with Chad Kelly and Win McMahon. And here's what I wanted to ask you: who were some of the Argonaut players who really stood out in this game for you?
I think when it comes down to it, the three guys who needed to be the star players, the leaders of this team, they showed themselves. Number 12, Chad Kelly. Number 48, Winnie McManus. And the guy who often gets unnoticed because he's back up to McManus in the middle linebacker spot. Number 45, my buddy, Lorne Park alumni, Jack Kassar on special teams. They were the three guys who have been the leaders of this team and had stepped up when the call was there. They were there to answer. They were the guys who led their respective units on offense, defense, special teams. It was a complete win on all aspects. The offense drove the ball downfield extremely efficiently. They never turned it over, aside from the sack, but that's a little, again, we've talked about it. Defensively, they made the stops when they needed to. They had 2 tremendous turnovers late in the game to seal it. And on special teams, they made no mistakes like we saw the 3 weeks prior against Ottawa, where there was the 2 onside kicks, there was the fumble return. None of that happened. You could call the squib kick block fumble thing there right before the half a turning point moment of the game that was caused on special teams. So I give complete 100% credit to those 3 individuals who are the leaders of their units, the leaders of this team, and they have to put it forth 2 more times this week, coming up tomorrow against Montreal, and hopefully 1 more time in their 21st game at the Grey Cup.
You definitely do not want to go into Montreal and let the Alouettes have the ball for 39 minutes, Nick, because generally in football, 99% of the time, the time of possession, 39 minutes, 17 seconds, Toronto 20 minutes, 43 seconds. The Argos obviously have a quick strike offense, which is great, but having your defense on the field for 39 minutes, close to 40 minutes, if it's a close game, they're going to be gassed out. So I really feel the Argonauts passing attack is great, but I really feel against the Alouettes, they've got to get Kadeem McCary involved a little bit more too. I'm not saying give up the passing game, but a little more balanced offense, because you don't want your defense on the field for 39, 40 minutes against Montreal on the road, in my opinion.
It is what's going to be a very huge challenge for Toronto, because unlike Ottawa, where they were okay at stopping the run, but loose holes everywhere, stopping the pass, Montreal is a lot the opposite. They're an extremely talented pass protecting defense. You look at the guys they've got: Dequoy, Beverett, Sankey, Murray, Ruff, and Sutton. They're all really good at stopping the pass, and you saw that in the East Final last year when they were able to intercept, caused 6 turnovers against Chad Kelly and the Argonauts. So they're gonna have to rely on their running game like they did the last 2 times they played Montreal. I think the last time, if I remember correctly, there was over 200 rushing yards from Kadeem Carey and the ground attack game, whereas I think you're going to have to try to get a little bit more out of your passing game. But you wonder how Montreal is going to be able to step up to stop that, because while 200 rushing yards look good on paper, I don't think it's going to be enough to be alone to be able to beat the Montreal Alouettes. They're going to have to find ways to complete passes downfield, and more importantly, score touchdowns, because that last game,
Yes.
they kicked, I think, 8 field goals. Like it's what helped Tauralau get to that record. And they're going to have to complete drives in the red zone, smaller red zone, because of the notched corners in the end zone at Molson Percival. They're going to have to find ways to complete drives for touchdowns and not just settle for threes.
Absolutely, Nick. Hey, I've got another interview here post game. Chad Kelly and Went McMahon, who brought his McManus, who brought his little kid with him as well. And it's about 4 minutes. We'll play this clip, and then we'll talk about the job that Ryan Dimwitty and the coaching staff did in the second half, getting this team to beat down Ottawa 38-15. But here we go. Chad Kelly, Went McManus, post game interview from BMO Field in Toronto from last Saturday's 58-38 win over Ottawa. Chad, in terms of depth, is this the most talented receiving corps?
Just how do you guys feel about everything today, and then how do you look from this game and look to get ready for Montreal next week?
Today is, we feel all right now. We feel good. But like we been saying, you don't want to get too high, don't want to get too low. Take every game one at a time, and this is just what we do.
And then can you just walk us through what happened on the pick and then the lateral to Tavares there?
Man, all my DBs know, all my guys know. I'm a little older now, so if I get the ball, man, just be ready. Because we need points anyway. We can change the game and help, win this game as a team. So, that's just kind of being like-minded. One of the things we want to make sure that we do all the time.
And then I know we've talked before about you just being a veteran in the room. Obviously, last year, like we said, it was a different message. But this year, what's the main message you're carrying now going into this coming week?
Don't ride the wave. We are the wave. Let's not be too high. Let's not be too low. Every game, this is what we made for. In the fire, when things get tough, if things are going great, all of that, we're made for any situation. So,
Chad, the first half, they had the ball 24 minutes. You guys had 5 minutes, but your offense just kept clicking. Was this in terms of your best offensive performance this year by this Argonauts team?
I mean, we only had 13 points or 13 plays in the first half. So when we got to halftime, I was fresh. I felt like I didn't even play, so we were ready to go right out of halftime.
How much of a momentum swing for you guys, obviously, coming out of half, getting those two quick touchdowns there, the one to Tavares and then the one you got running?
Well, I think the momentum started when they did the squib and we got it, up on midfield and Liam knocked it through. So, that carried obviously some momentum and then be able to come out at half and score again. So that's obviously, two quick scores.
And then you yourself right now, obviously, look, you didn't get to play the first 9 games of the year, but how do you feel about your performance right now?
I'll let you guys decide that.
When you see Mackay downfield, do you just automatically think that if you can get him the ball, that it's going to be a big play?
I mean, he's a heck of a player. We have a lot of great players, and when you give guys chances to make plays, they make them.
Chad, in terms of depth, is this the most talented receiving core that you've ever played with in professional football?
I think everybody's, a great player, great athletes. They work hard. I've played on great teams before. I've had great wide receivers, future Hall of Famers, and I see a lot of fantastic players on our team for sure.
How hard are you looking forward to the game next week?
Yeah, I'm ready to play.
How important is it that you want to establish something in that game?
Yeah, we're just going to try to go 1-0 each and every day and get better so we can execute out there on the field.
Who's that on your lap anyway? The most important question.
It's my son, man. This is Echo Memphis.
Hey,
Big man, say hi.
Any more questions?
yeah, when you went,
Sorry for each of you. What does it mean just to get another shot at Montreal? Just given the history.
Yeah, we know we're going to get their best shot. We got to be ready for whatever they throw at us and just be ready to go.
Yeah, that's another chance, man. Another chance for us to go 1-0.
when the defense was having a hard time early, what do you think changed it for you guys?
Just settling everybody down. Let's communicate. Let's get back to what we do. It's a lot of, high energy for this game and things like that. So, we just got to settle down and play.
What's the challenge of playing in Montreal? Coach talking about the noise and the crowd, how they can be a factor. But what's challenging for up there on the field going up against that?
The barriers.
Thoughts on the interception, and were there any thoughts of you trying to take it to the house, or McFadden was there at the right spot to be the lateral?
Yeah, it was some thought about it, and then my back said no, so I pissed it.
Just one more for you, Chad. You and DeVar seem to have a connection versus Ottawa. Is that just a coincidence, or is it just the connection you guys have built as you quarterback receiver?
Just whatever play's called. As long as he's ready, I'm ready.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Just how do you
Thoughts on that, Nick, with Wynton McManus and Chad Kelly?
I love McManus bringing his kid on these interviews. It just brings that little bit of innocence and energy to it. And but yeah, I think you kind of see that the approach that they have that, and if you happen to listen to Overdrive this evening, they had head coach Ryan Dinwiddie on talking a bit about the upcoming game here against Montreal, them coming in. The interview was around 5:30 and they had just gotten into to Montreal, the hotel or whatever, an hour ago. before that, and he was saying that, yeah, there's the whole overarching narrative of the revenge game here, but you see in the way the players respond and the way Dinwiddie responded in that interview, they don't care. The goal is to go 1-0 this week, survive to next week. It doesn't matter whether they're playing Montreal, if they were playing Hamilton, if they're playing a team out west that crossed over, none of that matters. It's just you got to focus on the past. You got to focus on winning this game. You got to be ready and prepared for the next one. And in this case, they're playing Montreal. They got to stick to their game plan and come out. And I think they're in a very good situation here. If they can execute their game plan, if they can avoid turning the ball over too many times, if they're able
penalties,
to
keep the penalties down. They had 6 penalties for 77 yards.
Yeah, I was a bit less concerned with the penalties in this game. I don't know. It might, yeah, I didn't find it was that big an issue this past game against Ottawa. I thought the game was pretty well officiated. Pruitt and his staff did a good job on just sort of letting the guys play for the most part. So that was a bit less of a concern for me. I think like the way we saw how the game ended in the East Final last year, you just don't want to see a lot of turnovers, and you want to see the offense to be able to find some more sustained drives, especially early in the game.
Absolutely. And I wanted to bring this up. Steve Simmons did a really good job on an article with Ryan Dinwiddie. The 4 years he's been in Toronto, there's been critics wanting him fired, calling him dim dummy or whatever. But Ryan Dinwiddie in 4 years in the regular season is 46-22, has one of the highest winning percentages as the Toronto Argonauts head coach. His postseason record is 3-2 with a Grey Cup championship, and this is the first time in a long time that the Argonauts have been in the East Final 4 years in a row. The first 3 at BMO and this year. And overall assessment of the adjustments by Ryan Dinwiddie and the coaching staff in the second half against Ottawa when they were trailing 23-20.
I've said it before. He's the best head coach the Toronto Argonauts have ever had since Lou Heyman, and that's putting him in pretty prestigious category.
Obi.
I was going to say you put him up. I put him above Obilovich. I put him above Don Matthews. I put him above Leo Cahill. Like that. What he's done this, I honestly think what he's done this year, particularly with the 9-game suspension to Chad Kelly, this is honestly more impressive than the 16-2 season last year. Given the circumstances, given that they've had their backs against the wall so many times, there were so many moments where they lost games where there was trepidation, doubts that oh, maybe they won't get it done. It's losing the game to Calgary the way they did, losing the game to Saskatchewan the way they did, calls for him to be fired. Ignored all that, and now they're here in the East Final again, and while the bookies put them at 2 to 2.5 point underdogs, I think this team has what it takes to go to the Cup. So I think overall you got to be extremely happy with the job Ryan Dinwiddie and his coaching staff have done for the 4 years since he's been here, let alone just this season alone in a vacuum. And I think the way that he's approached this game, the Ottawa game, was great, and the fact that he had the faith to call these kind of plays, and Chad Kelly's ability to read guys completely wide open downfield, read it so quickly and be able to get the ball off to them to lead to some of these massive games. You just got to hope it builds the confidence into this week against Montreal, that you don't let those sort of past memories set in, because this is a new game. They're different teams, different rosters on both the Argonauts and the Alouettes than it was at the East Final last year. So you, just like they talked about going 1-0, you put all of that out of your mind. You focus on the game ahead, what they've got to do. And if you see a guy open with a shot downfield, you don't think, oh, well, when I threw this last year, it got picked off. You don't think that. You just throw the ball downfield. You make the play. You get the 30-yard first down, or be it what have you, whatever the play is. You just focus on that moment. And I think they're in a very good position, both physically in terms of their roster and who they've got, but also mentally. I think they're extremely mentally prepared for this game.
By the way, Obi took the Argos to 3 Grey Cups. Ryan Dinwiddie won. I agree with you, Nick. If this Argonaut team wins another Grey Cup this year, 2 Grey Cups in 3 years, I would agree with you. But Obi, he's still one of the best coaches of all time. He turned around that franchise. The Argonauts franchise was like the Toronto Maple Leafs for 31 years. And Obi, to me, he turned around that franchise. And Obi's the one that brought Mike Pinball Clements to Toronto. But I will say, Ryan Dinwiddie, I think, has done a great job this year in his 4 years in Toronto. If they can win another Grey Cup, 2 Grey Cups in 3 years, I would say, yeah, he's right up there. And I do feel that he's the right man for this team, Nick. Speaking to him as media, I know he can get angry, he can get feisty with his players, but he has this calmness about him. And the team, from what I see, they love playing for him. He communicates well with his players, and his calmness, even when the team struggles or is in a game, like a deficit, he doesn't panic. So the team does come from their head coach, Ryan Dinwiddie. And Steve Simmons wasn't a fan of Dinwiddie's either a couple years ago, and he wrote a really nice piece on him today. I'd like to see Ryan get a little more respect. And to me, you know what? He didn't get Coach of the Year, by the way. I guess he wasn't in the running for the Coach of the Year, but in his 4 years in Toronto, this might have been his best coaching job because of the adversity this team has faced. They lost a lot of players from last year. Chad Kelly being suspended for 9 games and missing training camp. So, yeah, you know what, Nick? I tend to agree with you if they can get a second Grey Cup in 3 years. And even if they don't, he's done a hell of a job in Toronto, and hopefully he'll be the Argonauts head coach for a long time, because you know this, Nick, as an Argos fan, when you're changing coaches every year and GMs, how do you build a program? And Pinball Clements and John Murphy and the Argonauts management team have built a program here where this team has been very successful the last 4 years. It's not like they win a Grey Cup and then that's it for 5 years. Consistency.
Yeah. Well, I do find it is, especially if we're talking about the OB comparison, it is a very kind of apples and oranges comparison. As we know, comparing an active head coach is still very different than
back in the 80s.
Legacy's written. Yeah, fewer games being played, the 16-game regular season. But you also look at there were a lot of shortcomings too in Obi's time. They got the Grey Cup in '83, but lost in the Grey Cup in '82, lost in the East Final in '84, failed to qualify in '85, lost in the East Final in '86. Lots and lots of playoff shortcomings that we have seen we've seen this in Ryan Dinwiddie's tenure, but a 46-22 record, something
it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
The high 60%.
But unfortunately, coaches are judged by championships. And I know it's not fair, but when their careers are done, they look at championships. And Don Matthews is judged by his championships, Wally Bruno too. And I'm sure Ryan Dinwiddie will tell you he would give up the regular season success to win the Grey Cup. So, but I really do think he is one of the best coaches that the Argonauts have had in my time being a fan. I will put him up there with OB. And you're right, it's a different generation from the 80s to now, but like you said, it is tough to win in the Canadian football year after year. And we should mention the Calgary Stampeders. Their playoff success run ended this year, and Dickinson's going to be back next year as well. But it's nice to have consistency with this Argos franchise, with Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, Pinball Clements, John Murphy, and Dinwiddie has assembled a nice coaching staff Nick.
We've seen so many years where we've won the Grey Cup, we finished dead last, we finished third, we finished second and contend, we drop back to third, and then we win another Grey Cup, and then we drop back to fourth, and then we stay fourth, and then we stay fourth, and then we win another Grey Cup.
Yeah,
it's definitely been nice since COVID that the team has been competitive each and every year to even contend in the way they have, and especially at home, because as we've talked about with the attendance issues, what draws the attendances is that you need to have a good performance at home and you need to be tough to beat. And because they've played well at home since COVID, it's drawn more fans to BMO Field.
It helps. Winning sells tickets. winning sells tickets and marketing too. And it would be nice to see more Wynton McManus jerseys out there. Like the gentleman I interviewed, he didn't have a McManus on the back of his jersey, but his favorite player is number 48, and his other player is Nick Arbuckle. It's good to get the younger generation involved, and hopefully they can build off of this next year, Nick, with in terms of attendance and stuff like that. And the people that go to the games, Nick, they're diehard fans and they love it. And it's always a good environment at BMO Field. By the way, Nick, in the next couple minutes, we will have a special guest on. Hopefully he'll come on, and then we have a second guest coming on too. So maybe while we're waiting for the one guest to come on, he was supposed to come on at 9:15. We'll play a little bit of the post-game interview with Ryan Dimwitty, and like I said, I think he did a terrific job in the second half, especially setting the Argos up to win this game, and also the deep ball passes too. Chad Kelly was outstanding in this game. 18, like you said, 18 out of 20, 90%, 358 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 1 rushing touchdown. But we'll play Ryan Dinwiddie's interview, and if our guest comes on at 9:15, then we'll cut it a little short. So this is courtesy of my YouTube channel. Ryan Dinwiddie speaking to the media after the Argos 58-38 win over the Ottawa Red Blacks.
Right close to the half, and then Liram kicking the field goal to those 2 quick touchdowns coming out of the halftime.
It was huge. The kick with Liam, I didn't know, for sure, maybe go Hail Mary, try to throw it in the end zone. A little gun shy on long field goals, going back to the SAS 2 years ago, right? So just felt like Liam, had plenty of leg to make it, trusted him, and great momentum going into halftime, right? So, we had the first 2 and out on offense. Second and 4, we tried to run them against 31 and a half. So I thought other than that, we were pretty sharp. Even moving the ball, even with that 2 and I thought we were following the plan.
So, Ryan, can you take us through your emotions when Drew Brown throws that ball, Wynton picks it off, then he tosses it to the bars, and then your celebration? Take us through that.
Yeah, so as soon as Wynn picked it, I thought Robbie was going to get a sack there, and then Wynn picks it. And I just go down, and he pitches on me, no, freaking out. And I'm like, yeah, go score T-time. So it was a unique play. It worked out for us, but we also got to be understanding we had the game probably wrapped up. Let's not get too careless with football.
Is this the most explosive team in the league right now, offensively and defensively?
I think we can be. I think defensively we got to clean up some things. I think they had a good plan. Tommy does such a good job of making us cover the whole field and different personnel and finds ways to get guys open. So they had a good plan offensively. Not having the tailback and what they did with that. So I think offensively, we can be pretty explosive. Now we got to go prove that again next week.
Are you done being
sorry? No, you go.
Are you done being surprised by what Mackay Polk can do? I mean, that explosive 70-yard play, and then going past the triple coverage to get another big play too.
Yeah, no doubt. And so yesterday we looked at Mackay's numbers as far as being the East rookie. His numbers are way better than the other guys, right? So we know who Kai is. I mean, you look at it, he's got less targets, less receptions, more yards, more touchdowns. How's he not rookie of the year? Don't know.
Cool. Deshaun Davis, what does it look like for him?
I think he'll be okay. So, I thought it was a bone bruise and, jamming in the turf. I think he locked knees. So it sounds encouraging that he'll be available for us this week. So we also got to take care of the body. So we'll come in tomorrow, hit treatment, go through the game, fix up some things. And the next day they're off. And then the next day we'll just do a walkthrough, take care of our bodies. Now we got to, mentally be sharp on those things. So it's a mental day on day 1. And then, day 2 and day 3, we'll wrap it up physically.
How important is it to have the experience of a lot of the poor finishes that your teams had in preparation for a finish like this one?
Yeah, I think, we learned from the last time we played them, right? And, we found a way to play better defense in the third, fourth quarter. Offensively, I felt like we had a momentum going the whole game, and our cover units were great. We came into the game, we're going to sky every kickoff. We want them to catch it right around the 30. Let's keep them right around that 40 range. Let's not give them a chance to have explosive plays. I mean, they got 2 really good returners, and let's not let them change the game.
What about your team's mentality that doesn't allow the other team to get away from them today?
Well, I think, we go down 10-0, and guys could have folded their tent, and the guys stuck together, and, we would go make a big score, and then, they'd answer with it, and, guys stuck together, and, believe, like we always say, at the end of the 60 minutes, no matter what the score is throughout the course of the game, we'll find a way to win. And, the fortunate part is in CFL football, the last 3 minutes, you probably get 2 possessions to really change the game. So, I felt like the fight was there, the attention to detail was there, and those guys stuck together, tight knit locker room.
I just want to ask quickly. Obviously, we were talking about Tavares earlier, but what has it meant for you just to see him? Look, he was with the team, and then he was with Ottawa, got cut. Now he's such a huge role down the stretch here. Like, what's that just meant to you to see someone like him really grow in his role?
Yeah, I think T-Time's always been a good football player for us, and we challenged him a few years ago, played physical, and he's brought that to his game. And good player. We went with some youth early on, and when that didn't work out, we said we got to get T-Time back. So he's made a difference since he's been here, and he's been great in the locker room. Sometimes you bring a guy back, they're not always they're a little disgruntled, right? He came back in, ready to join the locker room and be part of it.
We talked yesterday, Ryan, about from start to finish being the motto of the team. Do you take any lessons from the East Final last year and knowing you're going to go there? And it almost seems like the script is almost flipped from what it was last year. Do you take any lessons from and put into your preparation?
Yeah, no doubt. I think, last year, very similar to where they were. They're playing games, well, not meaningless games, but they weren't for standings. We had that situation, and then they were playing hot football towards the end, right? They got hot at the right time. I think we're doing the same thing, right? So they're a good football club. We're going to have the old crowd noise. It's going to be a great environment. We got to go on silent cadence. We got to start fast to get the crowd out if we can, so we don't have to go silent cadence for the full 60. But I don't care who we're playing. You want to get to the East Final, give yourself a shot. Now, obviously, it being Montreal is a little bit added motivation from the guys that were here last year, right? So, we just got to win this football game to get one of our goals done.
Ryan, thoughts on Chad Kelly's performance today and the depth on this team? It seems like next man up mentality.
Yeah, that's always our motto. Next man up. We feel like we got good depth. I mean, if you got to pull from the practice roster, you got to pull from the one game injury list, bring some guys on. I mean, look at Herzlow. Feel like he's a good player. We couldn't get him on the field because DeMonte's, Coxey's such a good player. So he's a different skill set than Cox. But we feel like we got a good receiver group. I mean, even Tommy Neal, we couldn't even get him dressed this week. He's a good player too. So a lot of good depth there. I'm just proud of those guys. Next man up. Everybody's kind of does their job. And as we said going in this game, just do your job. It's going to take all 12.
Your quarterback had a bit of a tough go there with the concussion, and he recovered really well. Speak to that and his ability to be a little more mentally strong than maybe some people would have thought last year in the East Final.
Yeah, I think, the East Final, I didn't think he wasn't not mentally strong. I thought he pressed a little bit, but then when we went down, then he fought his, way back and, just didn't work out for us. We were, trying to get back in the game. We just couldn't. But he didn't have a concussion. That was from the spotter booth upstairs, right? They felt like he took a hit to the head. Just look at him. He was fine. So we knew Nick could go in there and manage the game as well. But yeah, I thought Chad had a great game, 18-20. I don't know if I've ever had a game where we completed 90% of our passes. So you look at Chad's last 3 games, pretty impressive.
Coach, do we have any update for Coxey for next week? Because you're talking about players getting in and out. Do you think he'll be back in the lineup for Montreal?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it was close this week, but I didn't feel like it was the right thing to do. And if we dress him, he does go down. We're only dressing 7. We're in a tough spot, right? So
it's better safe than sorry this week.
Yeah, and so we'll see. I mean, if he's ready to go, I want to get him out there. And is it a mixture of him and Jake? Maybe we change the one of the DAs or designated Americans off the defense, put on offense. So we'll see how the week's going to play out.
Quick thoughts on the Montreal Alouettes.
Good team, really good defense. Going to get on the protection small. They do a good job of bringing pressure at a nickel, at a dime. They get the 4 down now. Where they go 5 down. Noel brought that to us last year in the East Final. So he's got 2 weeks to prepare for us. Very good defense quarter. I know he's going to throw a lot of wrinkles at us. So we just got to make sure we're ready to go with our rules and adjust some things and put our players in the advantageous opportunity to be successful.
Your team's done well against them head-to-head this year. How does that help?
Well, I mean, we were undefeated against them the year before until the East Final, right? So I don't put too much into it. I feel good playing anybody we play, right? It's going to be a big challenge. We got to go in their backyard and play our best football to get it done. They're a good football club. Obviously, Grey Cup champions last year. They build off of that into this season, wrap up the East. So we got our hands full.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Guys.
Thanks, Ryan.
Right. So just felt like.
Well, Nick, what's your thoughts on Ryan Dinwiddie speaking to the media and myself after the game?
Well, I like him calling out Tavares McFadden and speaking about his adversity he had to play through. I know Mike Hogan covered a little bit about it on the Argonauts website, and how coming from being cut in camp and then facing that adversity and coming back, I think it says a lot about his character in particular when the coach says, it's easy to be disgruntled and then becoming a negative factor coming back in the room. For him to come back in and be a positive burst of energy was great. Singing praises of Jake Hirschlow, talking about Coxie being very close on the line, now being a game time decision for this week against Montreal, but I think a lot more likely to playing than not playing. With what's at stake this game, and even just giving compliments straight up to Noel Thorpe, the defensive coordinator of the Montreal Alouettes, calling him out directly, saying, the way he's switched the defense from nickel into dime, providing really good packages that have proved challenging for the Argonauts at times. All that's some really good insights, and I think I know I'm guilty of it myself in past episodes where I've been maybe a little bit critical about Dinwiddie's emotions on the sidelines, particularly when it's come to challenging plays. But when it comes to all the stuff behind the scenes, he's really very level-headed and a very smart head coach. And I think you see that reflect in the way he conducted himself with you and the rest of the media crew there after the win against Ottawa.
Yeah, I'm hoping our one guest can come on. He is watching right now, so fingers crossed he can come on. But as for Ryan Dinwiddie, I've been doing the media coverage for this team the last 3 years, and he's been really good with me, and I've been able to approach him and ask him questions, and he gives me answers as well. And the team really takes after their head coach, Nick. It really starts with the head coach. He sets the example for these guys, and I really believe these guys really love playing for him, and he's just very happy to be there. And Steve Simmons, I'm not sure if he read his article on Ryan Dinwiddie, but he's always very appreciative of Pinball Clements bringing him in here. And Ryan realizes too, the CFL is not the same as when he played, so he's adjusted as a head coach. It transitioned from a quarterback to a head coach, and I think he's done a really good job here, Nick. And
what I like is when you look about it, not just in Toronto, but you look kind of across the whole. Half of the teams in the league have had guys who are former CFL players in their coaching and management staffs. You got Jason Moss in Montreal. You've got Ryan Dinwiddie here in Toronto. You've got Mike O'Shea. You've got Corey Mace. So you've got a number of guys who come from not only as just CFL guys, but as players who know what they're going through and are so fine-tuned to the Canadian game. It's not guys who have come from coaching college ball or NFL teams in the States and then have come up thinking that they can do it better, make a name for themselves in the CFL. These are guys who are very well involved in understanding and knowledgeable of the game. And I think it's reflected in the quality of play that we've seen out of the teams that these guys have brought forward, and especially challenging sort of the older guard, guys who don't necessarily have come from a player background, who have been kind of pure coaches their whole careers. You're seeing a lot more of that shift towards a young guard of player coaches. And I think it's led to a lot of success for teams like Toronto that these coaches are a lot better able to manage the understanding and empathizing with emotions that the players on the field have playing for them, but also having such a good knowledge of the Canadian game that they're able to tell them even just straight up, okay, on this kind of play, you can't be doing this, you need to do that instead. And that they look up to them as much as a coach would, and someone that you look up to and respect. You see it as almost like a father figure instead. And I think there's a lot of those feelings towards Ryan Dinwiddie from his coaching staff, and they don't want to let him down on the field.
Hey, Nick, we have a special guest. He's a friend of mine. He's a friend of our show, and he does a great job with the fifth quarter on his YouTube channel. And it's former Tiger Cats play-by-play announcer, CFL diehard, Tiger Cat diehard fan, Rick Zamperin from Hamilton. Rick, thank you for doing this tonight, giving us a few minutes of your time to talk to Nick and I.
Yeah, Chris, Nick, great to be on the show. Happy to be talking CFL. Unfortunately, the Tiger Cats are not in the conversation, but wait till next year has been the mantra for a few years.
Yeah, we'll have the East final between the Argonauts and Tiger Cats the next 2 seasons. I got that marked on my books.
Nice.
Before we get going, I do want to say a huge congratulations to you making the move onto the YouTube and the social media sphere with the 5th quarter. I know it was really unfortunate circumstances with everything that happened with the radio deal breaking down, the network breaking down. So to have you still be able to carry it on here on social media, having people continue to call in to voice their opinions, some more hot than others. It's really glad that you're able to continue to do that. And we're so glad as CFL fans that it's able to continue.
Thanks for that. Yeah, it's been it's been great. And unfortunately with the demise of the radio station, that threw a lot of lives into into chaos for some. But I thought, if there's one thing that should continue, it should be the 5th quarter. So we've transitioned it to YouTube, and after each and every Ticats game, home or away, we're talking Ticats football. And again, they're not in the postseason, but I'm continuing with the show throughout the playoffs. So after the East and West semifinals last weekend, we got a show, and tomorrow night, following the Western final, we'll have another show talking about the 2 big games tomorrow. What's your gut telling you about tomorrow?
Hey, Rick, what time is the 5th quarter show on? Like about 7 o'clock tomorrow night, or actually probably about 10 o'clock?
Yeah,
10 o'clock.
about between 9:30 and 10. Whenever the Western final ends between Winnipeg and Saskatchewan, I'll be on YouTube. Just Google 5th quarter show if you're not already a subscriber, or you can check it out on social. The handle is at Rick Zamprin. And yeah, we're going to be talking about the 2 playoff games tomorrow, and then following the Grey Cup, we'll have a post game show as well, talking about that game in a couple of weeks' time in Vancouver. But I don't want to sound like I'm favoring you guys, but I really like the Argonauts in tomorrow's game. I think it's going to be close. Montreal's got a great defense, as you know. Their offense has been playing well. They're coming off the bye week, of course, so they're going to be a little bit healthier, a little bit fresher than Toronto. But the Argos have some great momentum after pouring on 58 points on the scoreboard against Ottawa. And in the West final, Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, what more can you ask for? Those are 2 teams that have, deep tradition of trying to beat each other, and it's going to be fun tomorrow.
Yeah, it's set up for such just a perfect scenario for the CFL schedule makers, for drawing the attendance and the crowds and everything and all of it. I know, speaking for myself as someone who is going to the Grey Cup in a week's time, regardless of what happens, there is an incredible amount of trepidation and anxiety on me, because I want the Argonauts to beat Montreal so badly, because I've been to 4 Grey Cups. Coming to this one, it's like it's totally different if you can go and have your dog in the fight, win or lose. It just makes that experience that much more exciting. But yeah, I have to say, across both games, I like the underdogs in both. I think there's a lot of things that Toronto, with their momentum, and especially since the return of Chad Kelly, they've been so hot down the stretch now that there's a lot that they can do right now to beat Montreal that make them look really good against them. And looking at the West final, I know Winnipeg's had Saskatchewan's number the last couple of games, but I think they're coming out of breaking that no wins after Labor Day curse. There's a lot of momentum going Saskatchewan's way now. And I look at Winnipeg's defense, and I don't really think they're quite what they were the last couple seasons. So I think there's a very good opportunity that Saskatchewan can do it. And I think a Toronto Saskatchewan Grey Cup would be very exciting to see.
Rick, obviously, I'm an Argos fan, and I do some media coverage for them. I do see them winning this game against Montreal, but I agree with you, Rick. This is going to be a close game, and it's going to come down to a field goal. And the Argos obviously lost Boris Beatty last year, who was a great kicker, and Liam's been awesome this year for the Argonauts. I really think it's going to come down to a field goal kick by Liam at the end. I think the Argos are going to win this game 27-24, and I wouldn't be shocked if it went to overtime. As for Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, Corey Mace has done a great job rebuilding the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Trevor Harris is a good quarterback. I just can't see them going into Winnipeg and beating the 4-time West champion Blue Bombers. So I've got Winnipeg winning this game 31-20.
Yeah, I like those picks. I like Toronto, and I really think tomorrow's Argos Alouettes game is going to be decided in the trenches, as most games are. But you look at, the front four for Toronto, the front four for Montreal, they can get at the quarterback. And if the quarterbacks don't make mistakes, they're going to have opportunities to put points on the board, especially in the red zone. And in the West Final, I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. Maybe not both teams in the 30s, but maybe both teams in the mid to high 20s, a 29-27 type of game where I think there's going to be several lead changes, but I think Winnipeg just has a little bit more, especially at home, to get past the Rough Riders. I think that might be the more exciting game because I see the Toronto-Montreal game being more of a chess match because of Montreal's defense. Toronto, they're not going to score 58 on Montreal, that is for sure. And if they do, something drastically went wrong with the Alouettes. But I think Montreal and Toronto, it's going to be more of a chess match, whereas the other one is going to be more of a Royal Rumble.
Absolutely. And Rick, before we let you go in about 2 minutes, I wanted to ask you, who are some X factors in this game between the Argos and Alouettes, Rick?
Well, I would say that I'm looking at two receivers, one on each team, that could be a big X factor, and I'm not sure he's playing yet because he's listed as a game time decision. That's Coxie for the Argos. If he is playing, now you have another option who can break it. You have Polk, you have Daniels, you have Kadeem Carey, whether he's catching or running out of the backfield. Chad Kelly, the offensive options are that much more because of one guy who's an incredibly talented guy in Devontae Coxie. And for Montreal, I look at a guy like Speaker, who has made some big plays, and he and Fajardo have some synergy going. So if Speaker can get going early for Montreal, that opens up other potential targets down the field too for Fajardo, whether that is Mac or Julian Grant, whatever the case is. Montreal's got a lot of weapons as well. So I think those two receivers could be big X factors tomorrow.
Hey, Rick, one other X factor I would say would be the weather, because I know the Winnipeg stole a game in Montreal a few weeks ago due to the wind. And Winnipeg, you know what Winnipeg's like. So to me, weather could be an X factor in both these games. Rick, how big is a loss of Tyson Philpott to the Alouettes offense?
Yeah, I mean, big. He is, I think, one of the most up and coming superstars that you look across the league, where each and every season he has progressed and gotten better. And, he makes a huge catch in the Grey Cup last year. A guy who has speed, is physical, he's got the toughness, good catch radius, can get separation. I think that's a massive loss because that's another weapon that Fajardo doesn't have at his disposal. And if he was on the field, this team would be even that much better. And that's a scary predicament for opposing teams because Montreal is a darn good unit, offense, defense, special team. So yeah, big loss for Montreal for sure.
Next.
I was going to say, kind of on your point, you pointed out two offensive players as some X factors. I'm actually looking on the defensive side of the ball because, as you mentioned, it's going to be a lot more of a chess match game. And I think when I look at Montreal's strengths, while they've got a lot of good receivers and Cody Fajardo is a top quarterback, I think the defense is the strength. The secondary in particular of Montreal is the strengths, maybe more so than Toronto. The two guys I'm looking at is for Montreal, Marc-Antoine Dequoy, the guy who had that opening interception off Chad Kelly in the East Final last year, the pick six. His ability to just, as a safety, be seemingly everywhere on the field at once. He can pass rush, he can blitz, he can stop the run, he can intercept passes, he can cover from one side of the field to the other. And the guy I'm looking on the Toronto Argonauts side to step up is probably Deshaun Amos after going down with that injury. There were some questions. He's listed active on the Argonauts roster, not a game time decision, looking like 100% good to go. But I think there is that little bit of trepidation how he's been so good all year. The ball's barely been thrown to his side because quarterbacks are afraid to throw to him because he's been so dominant. It sort of reminds me of Enoch Muamba when they won in 2022. Winnie McManus led the league in tackles at one point because they didn't want to anything to do with Enoch, and it's the same way with Amos in the backfield. So I'm really excited to see how that matchup's going to go on the defensive side, especially in a chess match. I think it's going to come down to whichever quarterback is going to be able to take those risks and be able to make plays further downfield than just 5-yard checkdowns or handoffs to Kadeem Carey.
Hey, Rick, quick thoughts before we let you go. The Grey Cup is going to be in Calgary in 2026. What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, a little surprising. I wasn't surprised that was the announcement after I heard that there was going to be a big announcement regarding the CFL in Calgary. I thought, okay, this is going to be another Grey Cup announcement. But, I mean, they just hosted in 2019. And at that time, Randy Ambrosie, the soon-to-be outgoing commissioner, said, this is probably the last time we're going to be in Calgary for the Grey Cup because we need some big-time improvements to the stadium. And lo and behold, 7 years later, they're going to be going back to McMahon Stadium to host the Grey Cup. Calgary is a wonderful city. They have a lot of amenities in terms of hotels and, entertainment districts. So beyond the game, they will host an awesome party. But when you're at the game, let's not forget, this is late November in Calgary. The weather could be a little dicey. It's not, and not even close to being, a modern facility any longer. This thing was built in 1960. It is well past its best before date. So whether they're obviously going to have some kind of improvements to McMahon Stadium between now and 2026, whether it's stuff on the concourse or maybe improving some of the seating, but it's going to be a big and tough pill to swallow for a lot of fans to say, wow, I'm going to shell out, $200, $300, $400 to sit on a bench for 3.5, 4 hours, when the weather could be, minus 30 and snowy. They have to, at the end of the day, Calgary has to have a new facility at some point, and it's got to be soon, because if you want to host Grey Cups and, pad the bank account of not only your team, but all teams, you got to have a better venue. Hamilton finally got that done a few years back. They hosted their first Grey Cup back in 2021 at Tim Hortons Field, had another one, a couple of years later. That's the recipe. Get a new facility, improve the venues, make sure you have a number of hotel spaces for visiting fans to tend to, and you'll be in the running year in and year out. Good on Calgary. I'm sure they'll do a phenomenal job, but the next time around, let's hope it's at a new stadium.
Absolutely, Rick.
Yeah.
I'm hoping Toronto gets it again, but I'd like to see the Grey Cup return to Montreal at some point. Nick, final thoughts before.
I wanted to add in.
His Leafs are playing the Red Wings tonight, and he wants to see them lose to Detroit.
Jeez. Well, I wanted to just jump in on the whole Calgary thing too, because I think what you see in Calgary's situation, it's not just a Stampeders thing. You see it with the Flames too, with trying to move out of the Saddle Dome and build a new barn for them as well. There's sort of that need as a greater whole for the Calgary sports and entertainment group to kind of rehaul everything. And I thought what was interesting is the pitch to, like, it's obviously we're just speculating here, but the idea that maybe they don't even have to really move, and it's just reconstructing the stadium, the amenities outside the field. I can't say as someone who's never been there, but maybe there's the idea where, over a year or two, you tear down one half of the field and rebuild it from scratch as something brand new. And then the 2 years after, you tear down the other side and build something brand new. There's the necessary that they have to build an entirely new stadium on a completely different site on the other side of the city, and they move there. It can still potentially be where they're currently playing right now. And yeah, you brought up good points too with Hamilton, obviously, as being an expert on that. But you look at how it's worked out in Winnipeg, and you look how it's worked out in Saskatchewan, and they've kept that outdoor field vibe, that Canadiana. It doesn't have to be a dome stadium to protect us from the minus 20, minus 30 Canadian winters. We can still embrace it at the Grey Cup, the nation's unifying event.
Hey, finally, Rick, again, where can people follow you on social media if you have a website up, and the fifth quarter again for tomorrow night's show?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. All the handles on social media, whether it's X or Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, is at Rick Zamprin. And on YouTube, it's called The Fifth Quarter Show with Rick Zamprin. We have a lot of fun. There's going to be some off-season features in which I delve into some of the most iconic and legendary Ticats seasons and also profile some of the iconic and legendary Ticats players and coaches and front office personnel. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of content during the off season where, we have about 6 or 7 months where nothing really happens other than, free agency and the draft and then, the start of training camp. I'm going to try and fill that void with some of these cool and unique stories. And I've just, researching the first couple of, fifth quarter seasons shows that I'm putting together. And I've already learned so much about this franchise already that I did not know. So it's going to be a fun learning experience for everyone who tunes in.
All right. Well,
That's
Rick,
exciting.
I want to say thank you so much. The Tiger Cats will be back in the playoffs next year, and your Leafs, I think they'll make the playoffs this year too. But they don't need Austin Matthews. They're better off without Matthews.
Apparently not, and the power play's on fire all of a sudden.
Absolutely. But Rick, thank you so much for doing this. And I will make sure I chime in on your show tomorrow night after both Toronto and Winnipeg win, I predict. But you know what? This is a Canadian Football League. Anything can happen on any given set, on any given day. Thank you so much, Rick.
See you, Chris.
Thanks,
Take
Rick.
care,
Talk
Nick.
to you soon. Bye.
Yep.
All right, Nick, and we've got another guest, and I'm going to bring him on right now. Hey, Griff, how you doing?
Hey, Griff.
Before I start, I think I got to fit the mold. I'm missing something. A little better.
Looking classy. Looks a lot better than that Ticat stuff that was in Rick Samperin. So, well,
I wanted just to fit the mold. I wanted to fit the mold.
Yeah. Griff, thank you for being patient. And Rick was a last second guest. So thank you so much for being patient with us. And we're both happy to have you on here. The first time this year, I've not worn an Argos hat on here, but thanks for putting a toque on.
No problem. It's all good.
Well, at least you got the background right.
So, Griff, what are your thoughts on what are your thoughts on the Argos' performance against Ottawa, and thoughts on the upcoming East Final for the 4th straight year against the Montreal Alouettes tomorrow?
So I believe it's third because I think 21 was against Hamilton.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
So tomorrow's kind of like a trilogy bout, if you will. Toronto got 22, Montreal got 23, now 24. It's for all the marbles. But going back to last week, look. If they need to get off to a fast start tomorrow. I saw a video online today from a journalist. I'm not going to call them out, but they're saying how it's like you got to be patient with Kelly. You can't go for those big plays right away. I think you have to. I don't think tomorrow you can't hold anything back. You hold things back in playoff football, that's when you lose the game. That's when you ultimately lose. Last week, I'm not saying he had that. It's just saying it took them a while to get going. They had to have the momentum of the squib kick to then nail the 53-footer from Liram. To then, come out of halftime. He runs a touchdown in the second one, and then he got Daniels for the first one, which, look, you know me, I'm big into betting with the CFL. I was on Tavares because Tavares always seems to have good games against Ottawa. I don't know what it is. But going into tomorrow, it's going to be very interesting to see what they game plan for and what they do. One battle, I know everyone's going to talk about, could the matchups be whatever receiver against Duquois, whatever person against Amos, his name, Tavares, tea time.
McFadden.
McFadden. Winton McManus up the middle. The one I'm looking at is how this battle is won and lost with the big boys in the front.
Offensive line, defensive line. Yeah, I agree with you.
Jason Moss likes to play dirty, likes to get down and get dirty. That's one thing I learned from him last year. Getting to cover. Well, actually, it's over here. With these two bad boys last year, getting to learn Jason Moss more of his intricacies that he knows that, look, that's how football games are won and lost. I liked listening to Rick about how, look, I know Philpott's done for the year, and Mac's not 100%, but a guy like Cole Speaker, a guy like Sneed, tomorrow we're going to see guys like that emerge. We're going to have to see guys like that make a play. A Walter Fletcher coming to make a play. See Kadeem Carey, I wonder if
we're going to see a dribble kick at some point.
I wouldn't put it. I don't know. I don't know.
Yes.
I feel like if there's more with tricks and stuff like that, I'm going to say it probably more from Moss than Dinwiddie, just because I feel like sometimes with Dinwiddie, he likes to stick with his game plans. That's always not a bad thing, though. That's not a bad thing always, though.
Oh, yeah. I definitely don't see Daniels or Unger or somebody doing something like that. It would have to come from Montreal's side.
Unless Mickey wants to get creative, and then in which case, be my guest.
Yeah.
Special teams could be a factor in this game. One thing I forgot, Griff, I think Nick did too, is the weather forecast, because look what happened there a couple weeks ago where Winnipeg stole a game from Montreal.
There's not
from
going to
that
be an
wind.
act of God like that. That is not happening again. I guarantee you that.
Or the Birds.
Yep.
Because hey, CFL at this time of the year, the weather can be a factor. Same with Winnipeg. I don't know if Winnipeg's expecting any snow or harsh, cool temperatures for tomorrow's game.
I want to look that one up because I'm actually genuinely curious with Winnipeg.
Yeah, but what I saw, I was looking at the forecast on the news today, and it's going to be cool. Like it's going to be around 8 degrees both here and in Toronto and in Montreal. But I don't see wind being like that extreme factor where there's going to be a sudden burst of wind late in the fourth quarter with 3 minutes left to go, 40 kilometers an hour going directly towards one side of the field. Like I can't see anything like that happening. That was a complete and utter fluke. I think what we're actually set for is a pretty much more or less perfect fall weather game for football. Might be a little bit more cloudy, but I don't think there's a chance of rain. It will be cold, but that's football weather in fall in Canada. So you just drink your bottle of suck it up juice and you go out there and play.
Hey Griff, since I have you on here, who do you feel could be some X factors in this game between the Argos and Alouettes?
So one other thing I want to say too with the weather is I just looked up Winnipeg and it's the same as here. You know, it's not. It's
Wow.
mild for them.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
It's t-shirt weather.
Yeah.
That's a huge advantage for Saskatchewan, because you know how many times Winnipeg is played in -20, -30 in snowy conditions. So I think that's going to help both teams in this game. Griff, what's your feeling? What's your gut feeling on these games?
So before we go into gut feelings, X factors, I already said it. I'm going Cole Speaker for Montreal.
Good choice.
If you look at what happened last year, he had an amazing catch and clutch time in the stretch down the Grey Cup. Cody Fajardo has a lot of trust in him to make a big play in a big moment, and he's not afraid to rise up and do so. But for Toronto, I could go Coxie, who is a game time decision. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Because I know last week, Chris, you were there in the room with me. I asked Dinwiddie about it. He didn't go last week because it was a better safe than sorry call, which I get. I could go, you know how they're saying DeVaris Daniels. I've got another receiver who had a good game a few weeks ago. He's been hurt for a lot of the year. He's someone I've gotten close to in my time covering the team. Number 18, Dejon Brissett. You let him get open. You know Kelly will use him. He's not going to have those big plays like Makai Polk has, but he's going to have those goal line plays where, you know what, he can find the end zone. We've seen it when he's healthy. I look at a guy like him to, you know what, really rise up, because in these moments, like I said earlier, you're looking at who are those unsung heroes that can emerge, and who better than number 18.
If Coxie being a GTD doesn't go in, do you have any faith in Herslow?
Yeah, I mean, it's more not about me having faith in Herslow, and more than anything, it's just the fact that Dinwiddie has faith in him to go in. Dinwiddie has a lot of faith. Guys from, you know, the bottom of the practice squad roster, the guys who are playing 99% of the snap. So as long as you're in that room and you have the buy-in, the leadership rungs that ring down all the way from, I would say, Keith Pelly to Pinball to Murph to RD down to the leadership core in there. But there's one other player on defense. I don't know how much of an X factor he is, but he's going to be a big reason why Toronto could win, and that's Flo. I'm sorry, Flo has been down the stretch. He's been playing incredible football. He's fast. He's agile. His ball speed, getting off the snap, has just been incredible. I know everyone looks at Winton McManus. Look, I'm personally a really big Winton fan, but Flo is just that guy who can be that true game wrecker for Montreal. And then also, I look at other guys like on the other side of the ball as well, like you were saying earlier, Duquois. But another guy to watch for is Kavion Ito, number 48. He had a pick 6 last year as well.
My X factor for the Argos is going to be Javarian Grant. I really feel it's been a while, but he hasn't taken one to the house. I have a feeling it's going to be a special teams play that's the difference in this game. I don't know what Nick feels like, but I think Javarian Grant is going to be an X factor in this game.
Montreal is, I don't know how Montreal is, but like it's
just my gut feeling. My gut feeling is he's going to have a big impact in this game.
I'm on my side. I'm actually mostly curious to what they're going to do with Fraser Sopik returning and how they use him versus Isaac Darcangelo in the field or no boundary side linebacking core, because there were a lot of questions with Sopik coming in. Do we put Sopik in? Do you put Darcangelo in? I think you get a little bit more run stopping with Sopik, but both have looked really good. So I'm really curious to see how that works out on that side. Maybe not necessarily as an X factor, but just seeing how they're gonna run that. If who's going to be in on like first or second and short versus second and long situations, that kind of thing.
Darnell Sankey was the other player I was thinking of, by the way.
That's another good one.
All right, Griff, going to put you on the spot here. What are 3 keys to an Argo win over the Montreal Alouettes tomorrow?
I know I was talking earlier about you kind of have to, people are saying don't let Chad Kelly go right away. I'm going to say this. I know last year, look, you can say what you want about last year's game. Don't play hero ball too quickly. That's my thing. I know you can make the big plays when you sense them and when you feel them, but don't make a play just because you feel like you need to have to do it. Don't make the big play because it's time to put like, oh, you know what? I will got to be a hero before it's meant to be the time. That's my big key there. My other big key, which has been a problem all year for this damn Argos team, get off the field on second and long. Second and long defense has to come to play. We know the DBs have been a little weaker this year. Deshaun Amos is good to go this week. Tavares McFadden's going to be playing. Royce Metier. They're going to be fine on DBs, but those DBs have to control those Montreal receivers early and often. And my other one as well, look, I know he first half, the second half last week, I mentioned on my podcast yesterday, but let number 25 do his thing. He's got the trust in Dinwiddie. He's got everything else. And I've been saying the same dad joke every year, but let the man carry the ball into the end zone, okay? That's all I need to say for that one. And one other one I want to point out quickly too is, for as much as I've been saying with Kadeem Carey as well, Toronto's offensive line play, I know they're still without Isaiah Cage. I know David DeCastro still on the 6-game injured list. But they've been holding their own. Ryan Hunter. David Giffin's actually someone who stepped in and played very nicely on the offensive line as well. He's been banged up the last couple seasons as well. Someone I've gone to my time going to practice, getting to know. So it's just good to see him getting in and getting action to where this team's truly next man up. So that's why I picked Dejan as my thing. So you know what? If Coxie's not 100% or – because that's the other thing too. There is film on Herslow now to where I feel like they could take him out. But Dejan, because he didn't have not the best game, but because he was quieter in the East semi, that leaves room for him to, go out and do some damage.
Nick, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, speaking to the running game, I think it's funny because I think we were all there at the preseason game at the very beginning of the season against Hamilton, and just looking at the effectiveness of the run blocking that they had in that game, and it's waned at times. We saw last week against Ottawa that they had to abandon the running game quickly. And in his interview with 1050, we talked about how they did that 2nd and 4 on the opening drive. They weren't able to convert on it. And then that sort of led to that need to move away from the running game early. But when crunch time has been needed, they've been able to push their way in for first downs. And like I mentioned earlier in the show, we saw that when Chad Kelly went down, Arbuckle came in, everyone in the stadium knew they were running the ball, and yet the Argos were still able to get first down after first down with Kadeem Carey. I really like your point there, Griff, on that. Give Kadeem Carey the trust that he's able to put it into the first down in the end zones where they need it, and that the O-line is capable of blocking it, because they've proven time in and time out in crucial moments that they've been able to do it.
The Argos need to get off to a strong start, because we know this, Nick and Griff. When the Argos have a lead, their defense is much better. It's harder to play better defense when you're trailing. So I really think the Argonauts need to get off to a strong start, and they play a clean game. No interceptions, no fumbles, clean game. And I agree with you, Griff. I think it's going to come down to the battle of the trenches, the offensive line and the D line against Montreal's lines. And I think that's going to be huge. And Kadeem Carey, I would like to see him get the ball more than 9 times in this game as well. And Griff, I brought this up to Nick. When you have the ball for only 20 minutes and another team has for 40 minutes, generally in football you lose. So I would like to see the Argos have more longer sustained drives as well.
they will get their asses kicked if that's the case tomorrow. If they lose a time possession battle, they will get run off the field because it's going to take a full 60 minutes to win this game. I'm not saying it's going to come down to last possession, but sorry to cut you off, but it's definitely going to take just a full 60, foot on the gas, no let up. If we see what we saw in the second half for 60 minutes, they're in for good. Tomorrow, look, I know who I want to see win, but I don't know what's going to happen. I think honestly, both. Here's the thing with both finals tomorrow. You have 4 teams who you can make a case for any of them being in Vancouver next weekend. You have 4 teams with horses at running back, with true workhorse running backs. And you have each team with a unique story to them.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, Griff, overall assessment of the West Final between Saskatchewan and Winnipeg, and who do you see coming out of the West Final? And then I'll get Nick's thoughts.
Look, so for this game here, fun fact, Saskatchewan last won so 2 fun facts. The last time Saskatchewan won in Winnipeg was 2018, so they're looking to erase that. But the other one is do you guys know when the last time that Saskatchewan beat Winnipeg in the playoffs?
It's been a while.
2013?
2007 at the Rogers Center.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
The Grey Cup. And guess who the quarterback was for the Blue Bombers? Ryan Dinwiddie. Ryan Dinwiddie was on the Blue Bombers quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Glenn got hurt in the East Final against Toronto, so Dinwiddie had to start. It was his first professional start.
Yeah, so there's just forces. So for Winnipeg, there's a lot on the line in a lot of ways. I wrote an article about this just for them looking for glory because I know they've been this. I can't use the word dynasty around them because of what's happened the last 2 years because they've gotten so close and they've fallen short. Where 2 years ago it was shock and disappointment that they lost. I know Chris knows this, Nick. I don't know if you know this, but I was actually at the Grey Cup last year as well in Hamilton. But where I was situated was in a room right across the street from the visitors' locker room. There's words I'm not going to say on air. It was just they were just pissed off. So that's the thing. You have a team too that they're the typical CFL team where it's not even about getting hot at the right time. They've just been a very roller coaster team throughout the year, if you will. They're more or less. They've given me kind of the vibe the 22 Toronto Argonauts had, where I go back and look at that team and it's like there was some hot and cold moments, but at the end, who's hosting the West Final? It's the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They're a well-coached team. There's a well-played team. And my big thing for them too is after this year, how many more cracks at the whip do you have? After this year, I know they're hosting the Grey Cup next year, but how many more opportunities after this are they going to get? Because they are getting older. There's no getting younger.
This might be the last hurrah as a core because you're right.
Reminds me a lot of Calgary before them, and then probably Montreal before them.
I have a take on Calgary that I'll share after, both on and off field.
Oh, because of the Grey Cup hosting.
Yeah. I speculated about that yesterday. I think the announcement should have been something else, but the announcement was what it was. But with Winnipeg though, it's just that whole this group's getting older. There's not a lot left, and it's because. This is said a lot in the NFL, and I know these are 2 different leagues, but I cover both leagues vigorously. Going back to the mountain, going back to 0-0 and climbing the mountain again is very difficult. It's not just hey, you can get back and do it again. Look, obviously they're there, but we've seen this team have a lot of negatives. We've seen Caleros throw a lot of just wonky, weird, errant interceptions. And then with Saskatchewan, you essentially have a team playing with house money. You have a team really with nothing to lose. If they lose tomorrow, it's going to suck because you're losing your rival that's just, had your number. Like I said, 2018 is the last time that you went into Winnipeg and won. But with Saskatchewan, too, there's a lot they can take from this year and go. But there's just something with them. There's a vibe with them that's really hard to root against. And there's just this overall
underdog mentality. And that's coming from Corey Mace.
I wouldn't even say underdog mentality. I would just say it's a team of people that just, they believe in each other. They love one another. And they know that, look, nothing can stand in their way. Meanwhile, I think honestly with this game, there's more pressure on Winnipeg to win it because of everything else. There's more pressure on the Bombers. So with my take with this game, I said this on my show last night, but I would love to see Saskatchewan win, but I can't bet against the Bombers. I'd rather be wrong betting on Winnipeg than be wrong betting against them, because they're the team at the end of the day that has the experience. And also I heard Rick earlier. I honestly think, Chris, you know what your original prediction for last weekend was? the ground and pound, just low scoring game. I think that's the West Final. I don't think this game either team scores above 25 points tomorrow night. I think it's going to be your it's going to be grisly football that football psychopaths like the three of us are going to enjoy. Yeah. But the average fan is going to be like, points. Where's the points?
One thing about the Bombers, they were the first pro team to go to a championship game 4 years in a row since the Buffalo Bills did it from 90 to 93. But at least Winnipeg won back-to-back Grey Cups. But if the Bombers can somehow win a Grey Cup this year, 3 in 5 years, to me, is a dynasty.
Yeah, that's why I'm afraid. That's why I'm afraid to use the word right now. But here's the other thing too: they go to Vancouver next week and they lose because, look, I know I've heard people say I could see whoever wins the West winning it. My opinion, I think it's whoever wins the East. I think it's whoever wins the East Finals winning it all.
Nick?
Yep, I feel very much the same way. Although I'm. Maybe it's the novice sports better than me, but I still pick Saskatchewan over Winnipeg in that scenario. I just think there's something about it where I feel
I like the points. I like the plus 3.5 for Saskatchewan because that's the one thing too. I just want to talk to Nick quickly. I don't know what other sports you bet on, but CFL betting is very it's not simple, but the trends are very easy to spot. Like last week too. Yeah. Look, my bets last week, I thought BC was going to beat Saskatchewan. I had them at plus 3.5. That obviously failed. But I had the over in the game, which was an easy money. But then the other one I had to was DeVaris Daniels. So I did pretty good for myself last week. I still got to think about what I'm going to do for this week, but I'm just going to let you know right now. Riders plus 3.5 is a very good bet. It's what I like to call. Am I allowed to say certain words on here or no?
Yeah, you're fine. As long as it's not swear words, you're fine.
3.5, in my opinion. Like you can do what you want, but for me, it's kind of that like. I'm too afraid to bet the money line, so I call it a bitch bet. You know, that's what it is. It's like you're too afraid to like jump off from the 20-foot cliff jump, but you'll do 10 feet. You know, that's what it is. It's taking the safe route.
Mm-hmm. I've got Toronto winning 27-24 over Montreal. Winnipeg, I think, is gonna 31-20 over Saskatchewan. I think turnovers. I think the Bombers' defense is gonna get some turnovers, and I think that's gonna be the difference in that game. So I see a Toronto-Winnipeg rematch from 2022.
Willie Jefferson, big X factor tomorrow night.
Absolutely.
I think Saskatchewan wins. It's gonna be I think it's going to come down to 45, the former Argonaut. I think it's going to come down to if AJ Ouellette can be the AJ Ouellette we saw in the 2022 Grey Cup.
They're paying him.
That's why they literally that's a great point. They literally paid him to play now. They paid him for November football. So tomorrow, go out and show why you got paid by Saskatchewan.
Before we wrap this up, Nick and Griff, thoughts on the 2024 CFL awards?
Brady Oliveira is my MOP. I am sorry you missed the playoffs. Bo, you do not deserve it. Bo, you had a great season. Do not get me wrong. It's like the same thing I say with baseball with Mike Trout winning MVP. He does deserve it because obviously Mike Trout's a one-of-a-kind player. But for Bo, I'm sorry, but it's the fact, too, that Hamilton went through coaching changes. It's the fact that Bo got pulled throughout the season. It's a great story. He got benched. It's a great story. And I know the Boverall things came into play for a few weeks, but then what happened eventually? You played a team in Winnipeg that just came into your building and kicked your ass about a month ago and effectively eliminated you from the playoffs. So Hamilton's got a lot of soul searching to do for 2025, but Brady Oliveira is there. One other thing I'll say about Coach of the Year, I think Ryan Dinwiddie should have been nominated for Coach of the Year.
I
objective. Yeah,
I would agree. Like I said earlier, I think that the way that this season had gone about, I actually found this season more impressive of his coaching abilities than the 16-2 year. But the problem is Jason Moss, the Alouettes had the best coaching record, and we always see it every single year. It always happens. The coach with the best record always is one of the nominees. It's just, it doesn't matter what the rest of the circumstances are.
The NFL does it the best, though, with that, where it's always the coach that catches you by surprise. The coach of the team that always catches you by surprise. Chris, you know about Cleveland last year, the New York Giants 2 years ago. That's where I'm saying Dinwiddie. Because honestly, too, it's like you're saying, this year, look, the best example of this, too, is, and I always go back to this, that week 1 game against the BC Lions, they were a massive, massive underdog. They had no business winning that game. What did they do? They had a next man up mentality. They had other games too this year, like the one when Calgary came here after they went out there and got beat. They rebounded well. Sure,
Mhm.
they got swept by Hamilton this year, and Hamilton fans can hang their banners on that. But guess what, guys? You missed the playoffs, and you haven't won a Grey Cup in 25 years. The fact too, they swept the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The fact they took 2 or 3 for the Montreal Alouettes. I feel like this year Ryan Dinwiddie's just shown so much more. He's done so much more, and he's also called out my colleague David Morsuti a couple of times. So it is what it is.
And Nick, what are your
No,
thoughts
David.
on the CFL awards?
Yeah, we talked about the two I really wanted to cover. I think like when we've seen the way the CFL awards have gone, I think it bodes better for the Argonauts when they don't get nominated for a bunch of awards because it does push the distractions out. You're not thinking about individual accolades or that. You're focused on winning the Grey Cup and the steps you need to go to get to it. So for those reasons, I'm quite confident in how it's boding for the Toronto Argonauts this week against Montreal.
Wanted to ask you guys before we wrap this up, are you shocked that Toronto didn't get the Grey Cup in 2026 with BMO Field being renovated?
They didn't bid on it. They didn't bid on it.
There's more important things happening at BMO Field in 2026. That's just the nature of it. Look, I know the Grey Cup will be fantastic to have here. There's something a little more important happening at BMO Field in 2026. I think 27 or 28, I think is going to be a mix of Toronto's going to get 1 year, Ottawa's going to get another. I heard
Montreal hasn't had one in a long time.
Molson Percival, I don't see it happening unless they go back to the. Yeah,
but Montreal's a great city to have one. Is there any chance the Alouettes could have it at Olympic Stadium again?
They got to renovate it. That's the easy answer. I was there 10 years ago and it was decrepit. You got to renovate it. It's like, look, I know Calgary's a great city, and I watched a little bit of the announcement this morning just to see what was going on. They had a great video from the tourism board just showcasing the city. The Grey Cup Rodeo also looks like a hell of a lot of fun. But the stadium was built for what, November in 1975? It's 2026. It's like Rick was saying earlier. Are you really going to shell out $400 to sit on a wet, cold metal bench for 3.5 hours? I know if I were to go, I'd have a different seat, but that's just because of the privilege access I get. But like for a lot of people going, you got to think about that. For not the locals, you got to sell the out of town fans of coming to Cowtown in the middle of November.
Yeah, the two teams that it came down to or two cities were between Calgary and Edmonton was the other one that bid on it, and even Edmonton with the stuff going on there at the Commonwealth Stadium. There's some moves towards renovations and improvements, but I still don't think it's necessarily enough for a Grey Cup. And Edmonton had the Grey Cup not that long ago. I think they had it just before COVID, didn't they?
2018, I think. I think it went Edmonton and Calgary.
It was the one. Yeah, it was the one the Red Claws had back to back, and now this is the third year in a row we've had a West Grey Cup without one in the East.
I've heard speculation that part of the reason why they're getting a Grey Cup in 2026 as an incentive for new ownership of the Stampeders, I guess, because they are trying to get a new stadium built in Calgary. So I think maybe they're awarding the Grey Cup as an incentive to get a new facility built there.
They got a new hockey arena coming, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see that because between like with the hockey arena, if they could throw in a renovation to the football stadium, and I pitched this to Rick, it could be at the same site. Tear down one half of the stadium and rebuild it in 2 or 3 years or whatever it takes. And then when that's done, everybody has to sit there and tear down the other half and rebuild that. Then you're staying on site. You're not having to play games in Fort McMurray like the Argos did when they lost games at the Sky Dome. Like something like that is a plausible solution.
Because I was also looking at 2026 too for the World Cup, and I was talking to because I know you have Guelph was potential listed at option, which I know would create Chris happier than I don't know, a good metaphor, than a bowl in a china shop. But I feel like they'll just start them on the road probably for the first few weeks and have a couple early bye weeks inserted in there for Toronto. I can't see them playing not away from BMO Field, but
I think that's why they have stretches of 4 weeks right now where they're not playing at home to kind of get them used to that feeling. So it's not a shock.
Yeah, and then like the basically August, September, October is just backloaded with home games.
Yeah,
but the big thing with the Grey Cups coming up, like, look, what's going on next Sunday is going to be awesome. I wish I was going. I won't be there. I'll be covering from home. Next year's good too, but then it's Calgary. Like I understand the city, and I saw the video too where they renovated the BMO Center, which I guess is like their convention center, to where it's going to host thing. Because the one where Hamilton was last year was okay. Like they did a good job of the festival. It's just the facility is older, excuse me. But Yeah, I feel like eventually too, like when's Hamilton going to want another Grey Cup? When's, all these Eastern cities are going to come start knocking and being like, hey, like we want to be included too. And Saskatchewan's going to want another one. I know they just hosted 2 years ago,
Yeah.
but probably 28, 29, or 30 they're going to want.
Absolutely. Hey, Griff and Nick, I would love to talk to you guys more about my radio station manager. It's probably going to kill me because this is going on an hour and 45 minutes. But hey, I want to say, Nick, thank you for coming on tonight. Griff, thank you for being so patient in coming on here tonight. Final predictions for these games tomorrow. And where can our audience follow you on social media?
Yes, sir. So first predictions, I'm going to go Toronto wins 26-24. I think, honestly, it's going to come down to the foot of number 70. I think Chad Kelly's going to have a hero drive, get them within field goal range. They're down by 1 score, kicks a boot, Lerum sends them to the Grey Cup. And then for the West, I'm going to go, I want to see Saskatchewan to win because I really want to see the student versus the teacher storyline, but also to the rematch of 22 would be another fantastic story to tell. I'm going to go Bombers 24-20. I think Saskatchewan has – do you guys remember the 21 West Final where Saskatchewan lost on the goal line?
Yep.
I think a similar finish is coming tomorrow for Saskatchewan. We'll see if I would love – that's a pick, by the way, where I would love to be wrong. But I just – like I said, too, I don't want to bet against the team looking to – because here's the thing with Winnipeg I'm going to add quickly. If they lose 3 in a row or they don't get to another Grey Cup – there's going to be so many question marks around that team going into 2025. That's the thing. And then with Toronto too, if Toronto, so there's cases for winning, but then also too, if Montreal loses, you know what? It's the same as last year Toronto, where it's like, oh, you got close, and we'll see. You know what? It happens. It's just you had your worst game on your worst day. You pick the worst time to have your worst game. With Toronto, if they lose, there's going to be so many people that are unfortunately happy, just considering. Look, a lot of people don't like Chad Kelly right now. I've seen a lot on Twitter, Ticats fans, but. Besides that, if people want to follow me, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok is Griff Sports Talk. Twitter and Instagram is Mr. Griff B. Sports Blitz with Griff is my writing website where I have all my articles out. I have some other pieces leading up to the week. I'll have recaps of probably both finals as well. And I'll have my betting video, which I have to go shoot and upload probably in the next 20 minutes. So, yeah, that's where to find me.
Nick, final thoughts, predictions.
Yeah. Call me a homer. I'm a little bit more bullish in the Argos. I think they're going to actually have a pretty dominating game by playoff standards. I think I've got them 33-23 over Montreal. And then in the West final, I've got 24-23 Saskatchewan over Winnipeg.
And Nick, where can our audience follow you on social media?
As always, Nick_small_38 on Twitter.
All right. Well, hey, Griff, it's been a while, but thank you for coming on our 18th episode tonight. And we'll have to try to bring you on before the Grey Cup, because I'd like to do a Grey Cup preview at some point next week. It's just going to depend on your schedule and my schedule and Nick's schedule as well. And Nick's going to be at the Grey Cup next week as a fan.
Enjoy. If I don't get to talk to you beforehand, enjoy Vancouver. It's a great city. I'm
looking forward to it.
I wish I was going, but well, it is what it is. Hopefully, I know it's not going to be ideal, but hopefully I'm in Winnipeg next year with you guys.
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. But hey, I want to say thank you so much, Griff. Nick, thank you so much. And look forward to doing another episode of the Argo Bounce Live audio show on WQEE 99.1 FM and also on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, X, and Instagram, and available on all major audio platforms. Gentlemen, make sure you have a beer and enjoy the CFL games tomorrow. Really looking forward to both games at 3 o'clock and 6:30 as well. And you can listen to the Argos game on TSN 1050 with Mike Hogan and Ben Grant. I hope you guys have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Go Argos.
Don't ride the wave. We are the wave.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. All right. That's about it, guys. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you to everyone listening to our show on WQEE 99.1 FM and to everyone watching on live stream and audio as well. And again, Toronto, Montreal, 3 o'clock kickoff. Winnipeg and Saskatchewan, 6:30 kickoff, both games on TSN. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you here next week some point for episode 19 of the Argo Bounce Live audio show with Nick Small and Chris Pomay. Have a good night, everybody.
touchdowns for the blue on blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the top. Pull together till the Grey Cups won. Go Argonauts!